I can teach you how to fake a polygraph. You can't go and pick somebody's brain and get a physical piece of evidence from them.
Do you at any point feel threatened?
What I saw when I went to the other side were just people.
Welcome to one more interesting episode of Stories with Kam and Jun. As usual, your host Arjun,
Kamakshi.
and today we have on our show a very, very interesting personality. Someone who would not be regularly shown or in the limelight too often. So we have with us today. I need to pick out my mobiles, guys. Sorry, I
Hi,
have
Arjun.
to.
How come your memory is deceiving you today?
No. I
Is it
think
such a good introduction, is
yes,
it?
yes.
Okay,
So
cool.
we have with us today Dr. Meghana Srivasthav, who is an independent consultant, criminal and investigative psychologist. I never imagined my life I would say that, and I'm speaking to someone who with that experience. And she comes with a decade of academic and professional experience. She's also the founder of Forestry Consulting, which is one of its kind criminal, legal, and investigative psychology firm in India, consulting firm in India. And she's, as I said, comes with great pedigree. So she holds a dual PhD in legal psychology that was fully funded by the European Commission. She's done that from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden and the University of Portsmouth in the UK. She also holds a forensic psychology PGDM, or the postgraduate diploma, and a master's in clinical psychology. And she's currently working on promoting, or she actively promotes anti torture measures in the criminal justice system and promotes open science practices in academia and research. Right. So that's what Meghana does,
Clap, clap,
and
clap for her.
there's a lot more to her, obviously, that we will be talking about. But I think first question is, why criminal investigative psychology? You could have chosen psychology and done anything with it, right?
Yeah. I think I stumbled upon it. It started off as a choice of laziness, to be honest. So I actually wanted to be a lawyer, a criminal lawyer. But this was in my undergrad, and then I thought, 7 years of studying is just a lot, right? Like, who's going to study for that long? So I did media studies. I thought I'll become a journalist and cover crime, right? Investigative journalism. Second year of my bachelor's, I realized I absolutely hate journalism. So next best thing that I liked was psychology. So I said, okay, let me see if I can get a criminal angle to it. And this was back in 2008, where this field wasn't even really heard of in India. So nobody knew about it. I happened to just Google search. And
Wow.
I said, okay, how can I put these two things together, two things of my interest? And I stumbled upon forensic psychology. So I basically just went into that path, explored, just did a lot of my own research. Unfortunately for me, back in the day, I didn't have any mentor to guide me. So it was basically a lot of search, a lot of reading, a lot of understanding. And thankfully for me, there was a course in National Forensic Sciences University. I was the second batch in that university, and we were 5 students in the forensic psychology course.
Wow.
So
Soulless.
yeah, so that's basically how it started, and here we are.
Nice, Meghna. I think if you can explain what forensic uh,
Psychology.
psychology. See, it's so difficult for people like us, right? We tend to forget. So, forensic psychology, what does it intend to? What basically it caters to, and what is exactly your job role? Like, what do you do?
So basically, anything to do with people.
Okay.
So psychology, we apply that. But forensic psychology comes with anything to do with the law, right?
Okay.
So you apply psychological, subject, like the expertise of psychology within the legal framework, right? So if you think of forensics in general, you think evidence,
Right. Yeah.
so you think crime scene analysis.
Correct.
But within psychology, we don't have evidence as such, right? We can't go and pick somebody's brain and get a physical piece of evidence from there.
Right.
So it's a lot of human intelligence, or you understand what this person could have done. You anticipate, you understand psychological concepts of what this person might have gone through, what trauma, or what would have pushed them to do certain things, right? You kind of bring all these things together. That's one. But mainly, if you think about forensic psychology in India, we are looking at things like polygraph, so lie detection test.
Yeah.
Maybe people know.
In the movies, yes, we've seen.
Yeah, so you get stuck to a machine where they're checking your
Yeah.
blood pressure and
Yes.
heart rate and telling you whether you're lying or
Why
not. Super unscientific, by the way.
Okay.
Right, so all of the science tells us that this is
Not true.
unscientific and doesn't work.
Okay.
So there's no magical machine, unfortunately.
It can
right?
be faked as well, right? People say that.
I can teach you how to fake a
Oh,
polygraph.
wow. Let's take that course afterwards. Not on the
Yeah.
camera, though.
Yeah, so if you want to ever get away,
I hope we're not
With-
ever in that situation where we want to get away.
Daybreak, no.
yeah, you know where to find me.
Yeah.
So yeah, we think of polygraph, we think of brain mapping.
Okay.
Again, not as scientific as we want it to be. And we also have what we call narco analysis, which
Okay.
is injecting a truth
Correct.
serum.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
and then
seen in movies.
exactly, you
Yeah.
see that, but that happens in Indian forensic science labs. So a lot of countries across the world have banned, especially the narco analysis bit, because it's like it's invasive, right? You're
Achha.
injecting a
Yeah.
person with a drug, trying
Right.
to get them to speak up. It's basically like getting someone really drunk,
Yeah.
right? So they either speak up and blabber a lot, or they just might fall asleep, or
Okay.
they might speak about things that's completely irrelevant and nobody cares, which
Oh.
is what most likely will happen in this case
So
as
basically,
well.
this is also not a good way to find the
Exactly.
truth.
So unfortunately, a lot of practices we have today is not scientific, right? But we do it anyway. I don't. The forensic science labs do.
Okay.
So I have had the fortune of getting in with the experts in Europe, the US, Canada, UK. So through my PhD program, I engaged with them and I found out a little bit more about what's a good way to use psychology in this field, where it's science-based, evidence-based, right? Like this actually works. This is useful. We can actually get something out of it. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. So my
Right.
focus is on investigative interviewing. So that's my expertise.
Okay.
So the idea is how to gather reliable information from a suspect or a witness or a victim, right?
Okay.
Based on what their experience is, what they know, and what is a good way to question them, what is a good way to use pieces of evidence that we have. In a lot of cases, we have no pieces of evidence at all, right?
Right.
In that case, we just have this person sitting in front of us, right?
Right.
So what is a good way to talk to them, ask them questions,
Right.
basically get under their psyche to get
Right.
more information from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, I just want to know how your work day looks like. Normally, for us, work day would be go log into your computer,
Punch
whatever,
in,
do
punch
punch in,
out.
punch out, do whatever you have to do. But how does your work day look like? Like you have to deal with
Which
probably.
office you go to? Or do you go to any office?
I don't.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Work from home.
Yeah, work from anywhere actually.
Yeah.
So I could have chosen the safe path, which is take up a government job, which is how we work in this field in India. So you work in a forensic science lab or with the CBI or any of the crime departments,
Right.
police departments, right? So they're all government jobs.
Correct.
I find that monotonous. Like I get bored.
Mhm.
I don't have the attention span for like the same kind of job every day.
Right.
So I want to do a little bit of everything, right? So I decided to be a consultant.
Hmm.
So I consult on independent cases
Okay.
whenever on need basis. I'm also into teaching. So I started a course in criminal psychology at Flame University. So they didn't have this
Wow.
course.
Okay.
So I introduced this course for them, and it's one of the most popular courses there.
Wow.
We should check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should see.
So it's so I offer that there at this point. I've also collaborated with other universities where I have designed a course for them, help them with the syllabus. So engage in research. So academia is a little bit more of a popular option for me in India.
Okay.
Because engaging directly with the government is not something that I particularly want to do.
Right.
Because again, it's a lot of paperwork, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of contractual type of work. It's
Mhm.
more
Okay.
of a full-time kind of a position, so I don't engage in that.
So, do you think they're like in your field when you go to these places to investigate? Uh, do you see more women in your field, or do you just see men doing the job again?
It's funny, with psychology, if you go to any university, you see a lot of
Women,
women,
exactly. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So somehow, even in forensic psychology, you do see quite a bit of women,
Wow.
okay.
Nice.
right? Because they end up studying a lot of psychology. So
Right.
for you to become a forensic psychologist, you need psychology background.
Right.
So you do see quite a bit of women. And so the university that I studied in back in the day was called Gujarat Forensic Sciences University. It
Okay.
recently got the national status.
Wow.
Mhm.
So they have like hundreds of students finishing this course every year. So quite a
Okay.
lot of women. I mean, we have students passing out. We don't
Right.
know how many are in the field, but you do find a lot of women
Right.
within the psychology sector. Yeah.
So you would basically deal with day to day with these criminals, I'm guessing, right? And you investigate them. Do you at any point feel threatened that what
Or
if,
intimidated
or
also.
intimidated or anything like that? Because it's a scary field to be in, right?
Um, I think for me it was a little scary, not scary, but intimidating
Right.
is a better word. When I started out, so I was just about 22, 23 years old. Um, and like it's like watching all these shows, so you think it's going to be cool. But then
Right.
when you go there and you see all these people, you have this mindset, right? That they're dangerous, they'll hurt you.
Yeah.
So you should be careful or you should stay away. Uh, but what waited for me on the other side was very different.
Okay.
So initially, I was a bit like, okay, how's this going to be?
Mhm.
I was looking forward to it, but I was also very nervous, of course. But what I saw when I went to the other side were just people
Okay.
with their
Yes.
stories.
Understood.
And it is how it is for all of us, right? We all have our stories, we have our baggages.
Right.
What we make out of what life throws at us is very different, right? People react differently to different things.
Correct.
Some might get into bar fights and get away with it. Some might get into a bar fight and probably accidentally kill somebody and not get away with it.
Oh yeah.
To somebody, I want to kill this person because this person deserved it, to all of these things,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
um at the end of the day, they're just people with stories, and they're just people
Right.
with families, with a background,
And baggages.
yeah, and baggages and insecurities.
Okay.
And they're not all dangerous, and they're not all animals the way we perceive them, or predators the way
Right.
we perceive them. They're
Right.
not,
Mhm.
right? I've spoken to convicts who have committed the most heinous of acts.
Mm.
And I still felt like, okay, I want to hear what you have to say, right? I'm sure there's something that you're going to tell us that at some level probably makes sense. And
It
what
does?
yeah, and what exactly,
Wow.
and that surprised me, right? So I hear these stories and I'm like, you know what, maybe if I was in your position, I probably would have
Would have
done
done
this.
so.
I understand where
Wow.
you're coming from.
So you also become empathetic in the process
Yes,
of investigating these people.
exactly. And
That
I
is
think that
mind-blowing.
surprised me.
Wow.
Empathizing with
Someone,
this
yeah.
population was the biggest surprise that I had. And I think that changed the way I viewed this entire sector, right? And that's why when you mentioned anti-torture, for me, that is so important for this
Oh.
exact reason.
Okay.
Okay. So you know what? Sitting at the fence, when we think about these, humanity, people, human rights
yeah.
people coming and saying कि इनको भी human rights होता है, we don't understand कि यार एक
Exactly.
rapist को how can you give human rights? He's
Exactly.
an animal, etc. But when you say that, because you have the first hand
Experience of
experience.
speaking to them, I
Yeah.
think you can shed a different light. And
Yeah.
yeah, now we are understanding from your perspective ki, yeah, they are obviously people with different stories, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But how much of biases? So you already know that they're convicted.
Mhm.
You already probably have read their story.
Not all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Sorry,
Some of
but
them, yeah.
some of, even otherwise, you've read their story. Probably in your mind, you will have biases, right? Does that also determine your line of questioning with them,
Wow,
or
good
how
question.
how how
Yeah.
will how does that affect
Um,
you?
So that's the thing, right? When you get into this field, you need to leave that outside the way we leave our footwear outside at the door and get inside in India.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do when you get in there. You leave your, prior
Judgmental
experiences
hat.
and judgments and
Yeah.
biases outside the door. If you don't, then you're basically doing a terrible job, right? So it's basically like, I mean, I'm sure people who are watching this some of them would have gone to therapy, right? So imagine you having a therapist who is judgmental.
Okay,
Yeah.
correct.
Understood.
Right?
That's not
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah,
You're
that's
basically a psychologist
exactly.
in a different space.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you being judgmental is not going to make you a good
Help, yeah.
psychologist.
Right.
That's basically it.
So can I ask you one more question, that when you're speaking to these people and just by line of questions, will you immediately think in your brain that no, dude, this guy is not done he's not the criminal. He's just put in the case for a fault, some faulty case he's been put in. Do you already know just by talking to these guys?
You can get a sense of it, but we try to stay away from making these conclusions, right? Because we also need to kind of go with an open mind
Right.
of, well, I mean, this person is here, but we don't know if they've done it or
Actually
not done it,
Yeah.
or even if they've done it, where is it coming from?
Right.
Why did
Could
they
be a
do what they
manipulator
do?
also, that he's so convincing that you
Exactly.
may
Yeah.
think probably not, but what if he's manipulating me also?
Exactly, and that
Yeah.
happens, right?
Okay.
Like for example, a lot of people, not just criminals, right, but like even people with narcissistic tendencies
Right.
are very charming, very easy to believe,
Correct.
especially when you meet them the first few times. They're
Yeah.
very
Right.
confident.
Right.
The way they speak to you is very out there, right? So you want to kind of believe that they're coming from a good space until you get too close to them, and then you realize, okay, yeah, kind of like getting a fly getting too close to the spider web, right? Once
Yeah.
you're stuck,
It's difficult to get out.
yeah, it's difficult to get out.
Right.
So that can happen, but like I said, I think an open mind is super important. Yeah, like there's no two ways to make this better.
Do you have any story where you almost got manipulated by somebody and then you later realized, no, dude, no chance. He's manipulating me right now. He or she. Yeah.
Manipulated, no. I do have an interesting story where I got a little scared though.
Okay, please share that. All ears. All ears.
I think that story creeps me out. It's been a good 12 years so since that happened, but even to this day,
Oh, really?
yeah, it creeps me out a little bit. So he was one of my clients in prison that I was working at, and he was convicted for raping a student. He was a college professor.
Okay.
So he was convicted for raping a physically disabled student. So, yeah, so I think there were 5 professors that got convicted in that case. And I happened to speak to 2, right? One was actually a psychology professor, very tricky, because he was basically telling me, you know what, I know what you're doing. So I'm not going to cooperate. Like, this is not going to work on me. We eventually got around. I basically said, listen, I'm not going to do anything. I just want to hear your side of the story. Like, that's it. At least to kind of, get him to talk. But this guy was from a different department. And from day one, he used to look you straight in your eye with this subtle smile on his face. Very subtle smile, right? And that expression never changed no matter what he spoke about.
Wow.
Right? Nothing, like, even if it's painful. And he's explaining to me about his family. Yeah, I'm married. My son is in the 10th grade. This was back in the day.
Yeah.
I need to go home. I need to be there so that he can write his exams, blah, blah. And he showed me the letters his wife had written to him. They were all in a different language, so he had to translate them to me. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then he said, yeah, so you know what? I've applied for parole for like 10 days during my son's exam. So hopefully they'll approve it and I get to go home and stay with him. I said, okay, well, good luck. I hope it works out. And then he basically just looked at me straight and he said, "You stay in Ahmedabad, right?
Oh,
Um,
Oh my
I would like to meet you outside."
Oh my
oh
god.
man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how does he know that I
Yeah,
stay there?
exactly.
He's looked
And
you up.
yeah,
Yeah.
and, but how?
How will
Because
you?
he's in prison.
Yeah.
Oh,
How will you
yeah,
get
yeah.
access to that information that
Oh,
where
Yeah.
yeah,
he's
that
from?
is
And
okay.
Yeah, and he was from a different town in Gujarat. It's not like he was in Ahmedabad. And I was living in Ahmedabad. University was in Gandhinagar.
Hmm.
He's like, "You stay here, right? Yeah, I'll look you up once I'm out. Are you open to meeting me outside?"
Oh man.
And I'm like,
And he was
and I was, I think, about 23 at this point in time.
oh shit.
Um, and I had to look straight into his face, keep my calm, and say, I'm your psychologist, right? I'm not your friend.
Right.
So I'm not. It's unprofessional for me to meet you beyond
Right.
these four walls.
Right.
And walk out and then flip out, of course.
So
but
scary.
but
but
sitting
just
in that
hearing
room,
you just
Yeah.
gave me goosebumps.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
now
I
I
just
can,
lost like when
yeah, I
when she
can
said it.
imagine.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine what you
A
went
criminal
through at
telling
like
you.
at that age, and probably
So was he
one of
the
your
criminal really
first
who did that?
experiences.
I mean, they were convicted already.
Acha,
So,
okay.
yeah. So they
Crazy
must have
to
done it.
know.
But yeah, this was one of my first scary,
Creepy story.
creepy
Experience.
experiences.
experiences,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also one of my challenging ones, because like to engage with these 3 to 4 professors and kind of get everything
Right. And they know
um,
the game and the framework. They
Yeah.
know how you were thinking and what you're going to
Yeah.
ask.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they also knew that I did not come from that city. They knew my language limitations. They knew
Yeah.
all of it, right? And they knew that I was still a kid.
My God.
So yeah, it was not fun.
Not fun.
So
Exactly.
connecting to that, I think so. How does it work with like more educated people being convicted, right? In terms of like you said, there was a psychology professor, probably is well educated. Obviously, he's also teaching kids about psychology, versus slightly uneducated person who is convicted for whatever crime.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, do you get easily? Is the chance of manipulation from the educated ones more, or even for the uneducated ones have the trait of manipulations and other things as well?
No, I don't think education has anything to do with this, right? I
Manipulation.
think this is a personality thing, right?
Hmm.
It's something that you probably picked up very early, or it's just a part of who you are, right?
Right.
We are born with a personality. We develop it, of course. It's kind of like, there's this genetic mutation of sorts
Correct.
Okay.
that you trigger, and then it blows up into a personality trait or whatever.
Right.
I know that sounds very weird, but
Yeah, but
So I think these are like sales guys, trying to sell the other story to you, saying like even if you're like you are one of the people who are thought that you've committed that crime, but they try to flip you because they are good sales guys and trying to sell you the other story,
story around
and
what
you're thinking,
happened.
okay, how
yeah.
it's gonna
So if people are good at talking, if people, let's say, for example, a lot of people who come from the business line,
Hmm.
right? They're just good at
Exactly.
talking,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
They're just good at negotiating. They're just good at getting your attention, and they don't take no for an answer,
Mhm.
right? They will
Right.
find a way to convince you. They'll find a way to, kind of not, leave there empty-handed or whatever, right?
Right.
So it depends on the background you come from, really. Education actually has less to do with, what kind of a criminal you become.
Right.
And the same bearing has to like kind of falls in line with being a male or a female
Yeah,
criminal as well, right?
Even
Yeah.
There's no,
females can do that.
absolutely.
it's
Yeah, why
the
not?
same thing. There's no difference there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe the kind of tactics they use might be different. Maybe men
More
engage in a
emotional.
lot more aggressive ways
Yeah.
of committing the same things. Women engage in a lot more subtle ways.
And emotional, probably.
Maybe emotional,
Yeah.
and like things like, maybe men engage in a lot more like take a hammer, beat somebody up,
Correct.
or
correct.
take a
Oh.
bat, beat somebody up. It's a bit more violent.
Right.
Women are more like, I need to kill this guy, but like, what's the cleanest way to do
Slightly
this?
subtler
Right,
way.
right.
Yeah, let me just find a clean poison, get
Uh,
this over with,
yeah.
and walk out, or
Right.
something like that. Or let me just like, suffocate and kill someone. Let me
Right.
keep it clean, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to clean up the mess afterwards.
Correct. Yeah.
Kind
I
of
Makes
think
sense.
it comes back to the story that you worked on with Netflix recently, like the curry and cyanide
Yeah,
story, right? I think
yeah.
that also where that lady allegedly has, because I don't think she's been convicted, so we
No,
cannot say.
she's not. She's
Yeah,
not.
so we
Yeah,
have to say allegedly she's
yeah.
killed her family members using a certain poison, and her crime was never uncovered till, like, I think the last killing that she allegedly did. So,
Right.
and she's got kids who are old
Yeah.
enough, like they're what 20 plus years old. So have you, like, did you get a chance to speak to her before you went on to the show, or
No, I
were
did
you just
not.
given some evidence and
I just had all of the case files, just like
that's
all
it?
of
Okay.
it. She was in prison, so I
Okay,
couldn't
you couldn't
actually,
go in.
meet her. Since it was also a high profile case,
Ah,
they kind of avoid any outsiders getting in, and
Right.
yeah.
So usually, just out of curiosity, when you sit with these criminals, how, d- w- w- what kind of questions do you ask? Like end to end, starting from who you are, what you do, and then you
all the
slowly
time.
move into the crime side of things, or like how do you build that rapport? Because these people are scared. I think they would be,
Mm.
because now they're convicted. Now what do they do? So then. What is the process? Do you have like a framework around this in your? Do you get that framework in your when you were studying, or is something natural which comes?
Yeah, you don't, there's no preset
Set framework.
framework or
Okay.
anything. I think it comes with a lot of practice. Like the first few times you kind of mess up,
Okay.
and you don't know how to go about it. Obviously, also because you're nervous and you're learning. Uh, but I think it's, again, like I said, it's like being a therapist, right? Like
Right.
you first few years, you're like, you don't ask the right questions, you may not have clients coming back to you, but after you meet so many people and talk to them for so many years, you just get a hang of it,
Mhm.
right? So there's no protocol as such, but like I generally have a conversation like how you and I are talking.
Right.
So one of the things that I never asked when I went to prison was to kind of chain them up or like handcuff them.
Okay.
Oh.
It was a table, two chairs, right? I'm sitting. There would be tea, right? So every time I went to prison, they would get like a jug of tea,
Tea.
Oh, okay.
like ginger tea, and I would say, you pour a cup for me. We'll
Wow.
drink tea. We'll talk.
You're getting them to be a little comfortable, right? You're
Yeah.
making them feel comfortable, saying that you
Yeah.
also pour a cup, I'll pour a cup. So
Right.
Yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
more like I'm treating you like a person,
Human.
Yeah.
and that itself is enough for them, because most of the time that is never there,
Yeah.
right? They're getting beaten up, they're getting mistreated,
Yeah.
they don't have space, nobody's talking to them nicely. One. Second thing is, they're not seeing people beyond the people that they see
In the
within
Right.
prison,
jail,
so
yeah.
they're happy to see a new face and
Yeah.
interact with someone who is kind of giving you a chance to interact with
And
them.
also for the falsely accused people,
Mm-hmm.
I think this would help them a lot, right? Because firstly, they're falsely accused, they're getting beaten up, they're in a torture chamber for something
Exactly.
they've not done, and somebody comes just to help them and hear them out. I think probably would be a sigh of relief for
Yeah,
them.
exactly. So I honestly didn't find it difficult to have a conversation. It
Right.
was more like we're sitting, we're talking, and they're telling me, yeah, this is what I used to do, and this is what happened. And so basically getting their side of the story,
Right.
right? So that's basically how I
Pretty
went
much.
about it. Yeah.
What is your experience in the jail? Because we just want to know, all of us, I think, that looking at this podcast, watching this podcast, is that what goes inside the prison, in a prison, like how it is.
Mm.
We just hear all those bizarre stories that people just get beaten there, and
There
there are
are
torture,
gangs.
gangs, and all that. Is it
Everything.
all true? Because this is what we have seen in the movies. Nobody knows what it is.
I think it differs from prison to prison.
Okay.
There are some prisons that are looking at a more rehabilitative type of space.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the more crowded a prison gets, and most Indian prisons are at a minimum of 130% occupancy.
Oh,
Acha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there is no space, right? Basically, it's kind of like, imagine these chickens that go to, like
The
these
poultry
shops.
farms, yeah, be
yeah.
cramped inside a
That
cage.
basically is how humans are in prison setup, right? There is no
Okay.
space. The food is terrible because there's a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like hostel food to the negative power of 150 or
Oh
something
my
like that,
God.
And
right?
unhygienic conditions
Yeah,
all
exactly.
across. And
Yeah, so it's not not very hygienic. So the more crowd there is in a prison, the worse the temperament is within that prison,
Right.
for obvious reasons, right? It becomes like a survival issue,
Hmm.
right? Like people need space, people need food, people need water, people need basic things to be on decent behavior,
Right.
right? Like you and I are talking nicely right now because we are well fed and we are well taken care of, right? But imagine the three of us are put
Yeah.
inside a cage and
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not getting enough water and enough food. You think we can be talking like this,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, that's kind of how it is. So I've seen like different prisons, right? I've seen like prisons with all these issues, overcrowding, terrible food, just people beating each other up, violence, suicide, all of that
Oh.
within the prison setup, versus a more rehabilitative space where prisoners are working within the prison setup. They have like simple things like carpentry, book binding. They have a pharmacy.
Okay.
Um, they have a bakery, right?
Mm.
So they do different things within a
Yeah.
prison setup. One, the second thing which I thought was very cool was they have open university guys giving them degrees, right?
Wow.
So they provide them with material. They come on to the prison campus and they write their exams, and then there's even a graduation day where
Wow.
they come and they say who got the gold medal, who did what.
Right.
One guy was a medical doctor who was convicted again of sexual assault of a patient. That guy, I think, was in prison for a good 18 years already, and he had accumulated about 33 or 34 degrees in that time. Just, yeah, he had a medical degree, of course, but
Yeah.
So
on
he
top
could
of that,
just
MBAs and engineering and just
whatever he could get his hands
whatever,
on.
just
Yeah.
whatever was offered freely. He
Yeah.
just had accumulated like so many degrees. And I think I mean, not accumulating degrees, but like just people having access to education
Right.
is useful if you
Yeah.
think once they get out, they
They
might,
might use that.
yeah,
Restart their life with all of
And
this.
if there is an
If
opportunity,
there's an
of course.
opportunity.
Yeah.
As far as I know, the whole point of a prison is to rehabilitate and kind of set their minds right, to say, to kind of put it in crass terms, right?
Yeah.
To but in India somehow it it's looked at as if jail should be a torture chamber or like a place wherein you're punished.
Mhm.
That's it. Whereas I've seen like abroad, like Norway and Sweden
I
and
was
all of
about to
that,
get that. Yeah.
you're like the solitary cells itself are like they have a TV, they have all of that. Okay, I'm not saying don't go to the extent of TV, but at least make them
Yeah.
have hygienic
Food.
conditions
At
and
least
food,
basic is food, water.
basic
Yeah.
rights that they can live with, right?
Yeah.
So where do you think that change? Do you think that change is even happening here? Is that conversation even happening?
Honestly, no, because it takes a lot of money.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of space, um, neither of which India has at this point.
Hmm.
Priorities are very different,
Yeah.
right? About 72% or maybe 77% of prisoners are under trials.
Correct.
They're
Correct.
still
Yeah.
not even
They so
convicted.
and most of them are basically forgotten
Right.
because like they can't afford a lawyer, they
Lawyer,
can't
yeah.
do a lot, so they're just sitting in prison for God knows how long, and that's it. That's basically what happens, right?
Crazy.
So rehabilitation, like some prisons are working
Like
on
you
it,
said, yeah.
right? um, I mean, I've been to the Swedish prisons because I
Yeah,
stayed there during my
Right.
PhD, and I had the luck of visiting. Um, I was like, yeah, I mean, if nothing works out in life, I'll just go to Sweden and commit a crime and like just go to prison. Like this is a good retirement plan, right? Like they yeah, it's that good, right? So I had gone to a forensic psychiatric unit as well, and a prison for
Right.
sexual offenders, which is the highest security prison. So there they basically had like mini
What?
golf and like a swimming pool and like a music studio room with like actual
Understood.
like this kind of setup, right, where you have like a proper studio soundproofed. They have like a football
Stadium.
stadium of sorts. They have a cafe. They have internet access. right, in a
Wow.
library.
Of course,
Yeah,
With
yeah.
limited
they
whatever,
still
Right.
have
but they
access
have
to it.
access, yeah, where you can look up like
Hmm.
books and read up things and whatever. And they have a musician coming in every week, to kind of
Sushi.
This is
record a song or whatever. Somebody to
right.
teach you guitar or violin
Doesn't
or
sound like
piano
a
or whatever,
prison.
Yeah.
right? And then they had like a designer who had designed their swimming pool, like absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
I was like, okay, this
Cool.
is so
It's like
cool.
two ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum, no? In India, you
Exactly.
have like there's nothing, and then
Basic
you
needs
have
are
in
not
Sweden,
there.
you have.
Yeah, and you go there and like, what am I doing with my life? Like, why am I doing this again? This looks
Right.
like a
Seriously.
good space to be in. They even have a gardener who will come and teach them how to garden. And every year they have a festival where they take their own,
Acha.
harvest, and they
Wow.
cook within the prison setup, and like everyone celebrates and things like that, right? So I've seen that. And you must have seen the Halden prison in Norway.
Yeah.
So that's like
Right.
the highest level
Yeah.
of luxury in a prison setup. Um, so, is there a middle ground? Honestly,
Mhm.
no, right? Because I mean, Norway, Sweden can afford it because there's
Population
very
is
few
less,
people.
resources are more.
Yeah, and they have
Yes,
a
of
lot of
course.
money,
Yeah.
right? We have the exact opposite problem. We don't have money and we have
Right.
too many people. And we have too
Yeah.
many
Right.
issues beyond crime. And if you look at statistics, Indian crime is not as high in comparison to other countries in the world, like the US or Canada or even Sweden, right? Like crime rates are actually higher. I know Indian statistics seems higher because we have a lot more people, obviously,
Right.
but statistically speaking, we are still in the lower end of
Lower
the
end.
spectrum,
Okay.
including rape. And that might surprise a lot of people, right?
Exactly.
Really?
People might think, yeah, Indians have the highest rape, but we are
Yeah,
not even in the
because
top 10 countries in the world. So, yeah, to answer your question about bringing a middle ground of maybe the Norwegian Swedish system and like, taking India up a notch, I think it's a difficult task. One way, and I'm thinking this, as we speak, right? Like one good way to go about this would probably be privatization of
right.
prisons,
Yeah, that always helps
right?
in any
The
vertical.
fact, I mean, the government is like overburdened,
Right.
and there's not enough people. They're not able to do, the more critical things that needs to be done. For obvious reasons, we are just a very big country with a lot
Right.
of diversity and all that, right? So yeah, I think privatization would be a good way to handle prison systems.
Right.
Um, in in terms of like maybe not just the buildings, right, but also in terms of things that we can offer, right, in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of like psychologists, for example, right, if even if you send 10 psychologists to a prison, there's like thousands of people and they'll be overwhelmed,
Right.
right? But imagine just connecting them to like these mental health portals or something like that that has like so many mental health professionals on it that can probably offer some help,
Right.
right? Maybe someone to talk to,
Yeah.
maybe carry out workshops, do online stuff, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So I think that kind of um, yeah, we need to find a way to cut
Right.
from just making it a central thing and decentralize it basically.
Right. Good word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Good
I
word.
was thinking.
Good word. So yeah, I think we can delve into more about what these criminals think, right? Because
Yeah.
so guys, Arjun, just want to give you a disclaimer. He's fond of watching these documentaries, and I always
True crime
true, yeah, of course. And
documentaries. Yeah.
then I don't like to watch crime at all. So we usually come in the take the middle ground, watch we both like. But before sleeping, you won't believe he'll be watching some or the other documentary with like 0 or 1 point volume. And I'll be like, Arjun, what are you watching? He's like, nothing which interests you, just go sleep. So that's how passionate he is. And I always ask him, why you watch this? And he always tells me, what I want to know, what these guys are thinking before committing this crime, right? What are they thinking? So on that, do you want to take this up?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, have you delved into that as to, when you ask a question, do you ask that point straight to the point, saying, why do you do it? Or is there a way to kind of get around to that answer?
And also, what do you think why they do it?
I think to answer your question first, there's no right way to delve into this, but it it depends on how you start off the conversation, how receptive the other person is. Most of the time they're receptive, but there are some people who are very difficult and they do not want to talk at all. One good way that I have that has worked for me is, telling them, hey, I'm here to hear your side of the story, right?
Okay.
And going forward, people may not hear you out. People may not, listen to what you're going to say. And whatever will be thrown at you will be thrown at you, right? So if you have anything to say that you think would be useful for your case, now is a good time.
Okay.
Right? And I just want to hear what you have to say. And if I think it's useful, I will communicate, what I need to the authorities or whatever, right? And that tends to kind of cool them down a bit, and
Right.
they're a bit more receptive.
Understood.
So yeah. So in terms of what they're thinking, right? Again, it's very different with each case. Some can just be, I want to take revenge, to some can be mental health outbursts, right? Maybe it was just a psychotic episode. And when I say psychotic, I don't mean it in the mainstream movie type psychotic, but in a very clinical mental health type psychotic, where they are dealing with delusions or hallucinations that kind of drives them to do something that they're not supposed to. To something like, momentary anger, to, yeah, like there's just multiple reasons. To property, I want this, somebody owns something I want, we'll kill this person off and get access to money.
Right.
Could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it completely depends on what.
I think the number of people who do these crimes, the calculative ones are slightly lesser than probably momentary anger or a fit of like passion or anger and all of that, right?
Yeah.
I think the ones who like actually calculate, saying, I will do this, I also know how a way to get out of it. I think that is slightly lesser in number,
Yeah.
is what I would argue.
Have you also thought that what made Hitler do what he did?
Well, I mean, there's a full book about his psychological analysis
On him?
On him, yeah,
Wow.
as to why he did that. So apparently, the psychologist, I haven't read most of it, but the psychologist also predicted, if things were not to go Hitler's way, he would kill himself if he didn't win the war. What he would wear, his bizarre behaviors, all of these things that he's picked. Why he did what he did, I think he was probably just like a grandiose narcissist with a lot of delusions of, him being um, a certain person, like almost godlike, with that kind of power, where he felt entitled enough to put people through what he did, right?
My God.
But that should take a lot of mental health, like haywire
To do, yeah,
to
that's true.
do what he did. Yeah.
Right. And I think the recent case of what we saw on TV happening in Karnataka.
Or that
Yeah,
lady who
that lady, well read.
allegedly killed her child. Allegedly, we
Allegedly.
cannot talk of her being convicted even.
Right.
So, yeah. What about that case? You have anything to add about her case, and from whatever you've seen, obviously?
Yeah. I think filicide is what we call it, right? Parents killing their children, right? Has existed for like centuries, right? In some places as a ritual, in some places because people didn't want the child, like unwanted pregnancy. So there are multiple reasons why, parents or mothers kill their children, right? It could be, like I said, unwanted pregnancy. It could just be, I want to take revenge on my partner, or you've fallen out of a relationship, or you've fallen out of your marriage, and there's been a lot of hatred, or whatever. So it could be that. It could be, again, mental health issues, so some form of psychosis. It could be postpartum depression.
Okay.
Right, which also drives women to do that, right? But in this particular case, it seems to me that it was a case of some form of partner related issue. One, another reason why some mothers kill their children is they think that's the best option their kids have.
Oh.
right? Like it's almost altruistic, right? Like I'm
Oh.
doing you a favor by killing you. You're better off dead than having a life.
Yeah. I was
That is
talking
this.
about it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yesterday I was telling my friends, and probably there is a situation we all know nothing about, and she may have killed because she thinks it's best for the child than being
Then sharing
alive,
the
sharing the
custody
custody with
father
the.
Exactly.
or whatever.
We don't
Exactly.
know what it is, right?
Yeah. So mothers tend to also kill their children because they love them too much, and
Oh
that
my
is so
God.
twisted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's
I love you enough to kill you,
Kill you. My
right?
God.
And that takes a lot of love to kill somebody that you
My
love,
God. Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So it could be one of these two reasons, according to what I have seen. It could be, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like there have been things with her partner. It was a marriage that didn't work out, and back and forth. And I think they've said that that was also the reason why she killed the child, because he had access to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
So it started off with that, but it could also be, like I said, maybe she thought that this is the best possible thing for the child.
Right.
Where she thought, I mean, we don't know the other side of the story,
Right.
what the father is thinking, what the relationship was like between the three of them.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot of unanswered questions, but on the surface, this is what it seems like. So either the partner thing, or this child is better off dead than being in this
Right.
world with this situation, or with his father, or with me, or whatever. Yeah, could be
This
any of
also
those
reminds
things.
me of the Nirbhaya case.
Mhm.
Why I want to bring it is because I was in Delhi when this happened, and everybody was like shook with like, how can somebody do such heinous crime? And I remember when they were all put in behind the bars, they got beaten up so badly. And I was discussing with this Arjun that Arjun told me that there are certain crimes accepted even in the jails, but raping a woman, killing a child are like the worst ones. Even the people inside the jail don't accept it, and they beat them so badly.
Mm.
I think one of them died, right?
Yeah.
He committed suicide.
He
He
committed
committed
suicide.
suicide, yeah.
Yeah, so like, and when the documentary was made, these people came up and said that that's how it's supposed to happen. She was wearing this kind of cloth, or she was out there in the dark, or matlab, in the night she was
Yeah.
roaming around. So like, people accepting to it, what does it suggest about that mentality? Like,
Rape is a very complex crime, right? There is no right answer in terms of why people rape, but people are trying to theorize as to where this could come from, and a lot of it comes from our understanding a little bit, comes from a need for power struggles, right? Masculine feminine imbalance, right? So we have moved to a society today where women are standing at
Yeah.
par with men.
Talking
Women
about
are having
consent.
women are having top jobs. Women are doing it all, right? And while men in the bigger cities are kind of more adapted to that ideology, people who come from like um, a more conservative background do not accept it,
Right.
even if you go like up north to like rural areas, women still basically just get married and have kids and stay home, and they're not educated, and they
Right.
don't have access to basic things, and they're dependent on men to take care of them and all that, right? So it could be something as simple as that's where you belong,
Showing you
right?
your place.
Showing you where you belong.
Yeah.
And if you disrespect your space where I put you, then you're going to face consequences,
Damn.
right? It could come from something as sad as that, as a reason, because unfortunately patriarchy has existed for like centuries, right? It's almost become a norm. So much that if you think about it, like within our own families, you probably would have seen mothers treating their sons differently than their daughters.
Yes.
Where mothers say, oh, you know what? Mothers never ask their sons to like clean the house
Yeah.
Yeah.
or take a broom and sweep the house.
There's no expectation like that.
Yeah, but like if let's say the maid doesn't show up, the daughter is immediately expected to
Correct.
do the dishes or like
Right.
take a broom sweep
She
and mop the
herself will
house.
get up and be like,
Exactly.
it's okay, mama, I'll do it.
Yeah, or if someone comes to the house, the woman of the family goes to the kitchen to make tea or coffee,
Yeah.
right? The men
Male,
never take
they are not-
initiative.
exactly.
But it's coffee, like anyone can make
Can make
coffee,
it,
right? It is such an ingrained part of our growing up that even I think at some point we ourselves do it without thinking too much about it.
Yeah, I do it.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I go and make tea or coffee if someone
Exactly.
shows up. Like I
Correct.
wouldn't ask my brother or my
Yeah.
dad or
Yeah,
someone
I
to
wouldn't
do
ask
it.
Arjun. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true,
that's
right?
true.
Right?
If
But it's
somebody
not
comes
it's
in-
not because we don't want to. It's just that it's so ingrained.
Yeah, it's not
Ingrained,
like
yes.
he can't make it. He will do it. It's
Exactly.
Not, yeah.
It's not that
It's
you
not
would
that.
refuse.
He would
right?
never
It's
refuse.
just the thinking.
It's just that
we've-
I
it's
only get
drilled
It's
into our brain,
yeah,
that's it.
and
It's-
you don't think too much about
Yeah.
it,
Right.
right? And we are people who are educated, who are like the modern society and all
Right.
of that, right? If we are okay with that,
Then
Yeah.
then where do people from conservative thinking,
Correct.
Yeah,
where are they
yeah.
placed?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that is where I think the problem lies. The problem doesn't lie with men who rape. The problem also lies with women who allow men to treat them the way they do.
Right.
Right? The problem also lies with mothers raising their sons differently from their daughters.
Daughters, yeah.
Right? The problem lies with our grandmothers, being a certain way, and our
Yeah.
sisters and our whoever, all other female
Correct.
counterparts,
Yeah.
accepting something
Yeah.
as their reality. So it's not just the men to blame, right? I think
Yeah.
women are
It's,
equally
I
to
think, fake
blame.
masculinity also that, oh, men cannot cry. Women are more emotional and show their
Exactly.
emotions. It's not like that. But yeah, I mean, that's true when it's in theory, it's not true. But in practical, we don't see our father or husbands or brothers crying
Yeah.
so
But
frequently.
how much do we allow it though?
Yeah,
Right?
even if they
if they cry,
Correct.
yeah.
let's say for example, you go to someone's funeral, right? And you are breaking down. You
Yeah.
expect your husband to kind of
show emotions.
No,
no,
calm you down.
calm
Calm
you
you
down,
down,
soothe
okay.
you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if both of you are equally breaking down,
Right.
then the whole equation kind of takes an imbalance. Like
Correct.
just thinking about it, you're like, yeah, oh, okay, I don't know what to like. Imagine Arjun breaking
Yeah.
down to a point of
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, of course, of course.
What would you do? How would you handle it?
Probably.
Exactly.
I think I'll cry if he cries.
Exactly.
I cannot manage.
Right.
I cannot
So
handle it.
that whole we don't know how to handle
Yeah, we don't know.
male mental health. In
Yeah.
fact, one of the biggest challenges that we have today in the mental health space is therapy is not designed for men.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Therapy is a very, let's talk about your feelings. Let's talk about how you're feeling today. Let's express your
Such
emotions.
a girl question, no?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But for men don't handle emotions the way women do. Men are problem solvers. It is how men are designed. Women are more like, I don't need you to solve my problem. I just need you to hear me out. I want to vent about it. I want to rant about it for 5 hours and then probably cry about it and then I'll be fine. I just want you to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, you're totally right. Like I'm on your side. But you don't need a solution to the problem. You probably already know what the solution to the problem is.
We just want to
you just want to vent.
Yeah.
But for men, they look at everything as this is a problem I need to solve.
Right.
And men feel helpless when they cannot solve a problem.
They feel judged by people.
They just feel helpless, right? And they feel judged because they're supposed to be solving things. They're supposed to be doing things.
Is that a pressure you take?
I don't know. I think I understand when she said, because I've heard you say that I don't want you to tell me anything. You just hear me out.
I've told him multiple times.
Because I always try to give a solution.
Exactly.
He gives a very practical solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's how men are designed, right?
Yeah.
So they're always thinking, oh, wait, she has a problem. I need to solve it for her. This is my job.
Yeah.
Right.
As her partner, I need to make things better for her. How do I do that? I solve her problem, right? So that's how therapy is designed very differently. And men don't actually benefit from therapy the way women do, unfortunately, for this exact reason.
Right.
It's so ingrained in us. When she comes and even talks about a very simple issue with her office, I start suggesting what to do rather than say, okay, just hear her out and don't say anything. But I already start suggesting, saying, probably you could do this, try doing that.
And she'll probably get annoyed.
Yeah, I get it. I start crying. I'm like, why you're not taking my side?
Exactly.
And when she starts crying, I'm like, why are you crying? I'm telling you the solution.
Yeah, so but that's not what women need. Women don't need solutions. Men need problems to solve.
Kind of an
Yeah.
epiphany today that you're saying that, but yeah,
that's
So
true.
men get depressed when they don't have problems that they can solve. So a lot of relationships, for example, break down because men don't know how to solve the problems of their partners.
Right.
And women are not feeling heard. Women are like, I don't know how to talk to this guy. I don't know. He
Yeah.
does not listen to me.
Right,
He does
right.
not hear what I'm saying.
Right.
And men are like, I'm trying to help her. I'm trying to make things
Yeah,
better.
and-
But both of you have exactly different needs.
Exactly. And have you now do you but like think about it during our conversations? I always tell you, you're not understanding, even though you're understanding, but he's responding in a different way. And then I'm
Exactly.
expecting him to
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that leads to conflicts. That leads to
Yeah.
a feeling of I'm not being heard.
Correct. When sometimes I give gali to somebody, he or she did this to me, that I was just like, but I said, no. You sit with me and let's rant. Let's just give gali together. This is what I want.
Yeah.
But then his practical brain starts.
Yeah,
doing
but
that.
that's basically how men and women are
Women are
designed
different.
and
Yeah.
different, right? But if we understand how we think differently, we just can use that piece of information, for example, in your future conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
You can just say, you know what, I don't need a solution. I just want you to hear me out. I'm
See,
going to
problem
go on a
solved.
rant. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to listen.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, maybe go and scream your solution in the bathroom or something.
Or
Yeah.
sit with me and rant about that person.
That person.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all I
Rant
want.
together.
Rant
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
That's a nice
Cool.
way to kind of
Imagine this podcast turned into a therapy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was just thinking we just
Yeah.
fully deviated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of circling back, what were we talking about?
So-
yeah, we were
basically
just
we-
talking about how men are different.
And the therapy
part
is
of
different
men
for
is
men, and
different.
So
that's why
like
it leads to
rape,
crime.
right?
And
So
why
why
rape
rape
happens
happens, right? So I think that's the root. Could be potentially
One
one
of
of
the
the root causes. It's just
Yeah.
how, like back in the day, marital rape was not
Correct.
a crime.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you're married to each other, you're entitled to have sex,
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? There's
That's
zero
it.
things you can do about it, and a woman should comply. Or a man also should comply. So I think these things kind of is a problem of how we are thinking about things, how a society has been designed for God knows how long.
Probably
right?
we are empowered now to voice our opinions and say that enough is enough. We want consent. We want you to oblige on how we are feeling, listen to us, hear us, and then and men on the other side is also trying to change that patriarchal mindset and complying to our needs.
But that's also leading to a lot of problems because men are not sure how to go about it. Like I faced this issue in Sweden, right, where women are very, very outspoken in terms of being a feminist, almost to the point of aggression. Where they're like, oh, you don't need to hold the door open for me. I can do it myself.
Oh, that's extreme.
Where men are like, hey, I'm just trying to be courteous. I know you can open your door. It's not that heavy. Or I know you can hold your own bags, but I'm just trying to be helpful or courteous. So a lot of men are actually scared on dates, for example, where they don't know what is a good way to go about
you're
it.
confused, right?
Yeah, like should I open the door for you, or should I
offer a seat?
Offer a seat? Yeah, or should I pay the bill?
Exactly.
Or will you pay the bill? Should we split?
Right. Because you don't know
simple things like this.
Correct.
Yeah, they're like actually scared of, okay, what's a good way to navigate this? Yeah. So I think that's where we are today.
I think we've come to a full circle in terms of why crimes happen, what people are
human
thinking,
behavior in the end.
what is the culture in these jails, India versus abroad. Norway, etc., and what usually happens in terms of when a male and a female lose balance in a relationship. I think it gives a very good context. And on that note, I want to end this podcast and say thank you so much, Meghna, coming. This was a really interesting one.
This was one of the most interesting
and engaging one. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this
we
was
loved
really fun.
it. Thank you so much. So, guys, keep liking our podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. We'll try to bring more content like this, and you can always tell us what are the topics you want us to cover. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.